Jake Sullivan looked out the window of the human transport ship as it moved toward the massive space station called Nexus Prime. The station was bigger than anything he had ever seen before. It looked like a giant metal city floating in space, with thousands of lights blinking on its surface. Ships from different alien races came and went like busy insects around a hive. Jake felt his stomach turn with worry as he watched the alien vessels. Their designs were so strange and advanced that human ships looked like toys next to them. Lisa Martinez stood beside Jake and checked her military uniform one more time. She was the Earth military officer who would speak for all human forces in this new galactic community. Her job was to make sure other aliens knew that humans could fight if they needed to. But looking at the alien ships with their smooth curves and glowing engines, she wondered if human weapons would even scratch their hulls. The third member of their small team was Dr. Ben Carter. He was excited about meeting new alien life forms, but also nervous about making a good first impression. Ben had studied every piece of information Earth had about the 12 alien races in the Galactic Council. The problem was that Earth did not have much information at all. Most of what they knew came from brief contact messages and a few blurry photos. Their transport ship docked with a loud clang that echoed through the metal corridors. Jake straightened his diplomatic clothes and picked up his briefcase. Inside were documents that proved Earth had created faster-than-light travel. This achievement was the only reason the Galactic Council had agreed to let humans join. Without it, Earth would still be unknown to the galaxy. An alien creature met them at the docking bay. It looked like a walking crystal formation with arms and legs. Its body sparkled with different colors as it moved. The creature spoke through a translation device that made its voice sound like breaking glass. "I am Kristek Vorhan of the Vorthak Empire. Follow me to the council chambers. Do not touch anything. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not embarrass your primitive species more than necessary." Lisa felt her face get hot with anger, but Jake put a gentle hand on her arm. They had expected this kind of treatment. Earth's scientists had warned them that most aliens saw humans as barely evolved animals who had gotten lucky with space travel. They walked through corridors filled with amazing technology. The walls seemed to be made of living metal that shifted and changed color. Floating platforms carried aliens of different shapes and sizes. Some looked like giant insects, others like living plants, and a few seemed to be made of pure energy. All of them stopped to stare at the humans as they passed. The council chambers were enormous. 12 different sections were arranged in a circle, each one designed for a specific alien race. Some sections had thick atmosphere domes, others had pools of liquid, and one area seemed to exist in a different dimension entirely. In the center sat a massive insect-like creature that had to be the council chairman. "I am Zextar, chairman of the Galactic Council," the creature said through speakers that made his voice boom across the chamber. "You represent the species called humans from the planet Earth. You have developed faster-than-light travel and request membership in our community." Jake stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Yes, Chairman Zextar. I am Ambassador Jake Sullivan. We are honored to be here and hope to contribute to galactic peace and prosperity." Several aliens made sounds that the translation system turned into laughter. One creature that looked like a floating brain spoke up. "What could such a young species possibly contribute to our ancient civilization? Your fastest ships are slower than our cargo vessels. Your weapons are less powerful than our children's toys." Another alien that seemed to be made of living rock added, "Their planet still has wars and poverty. They have not even learned to live in peace with their own kind. How can they help govern a galaxy?" Zextar raised one of his many arms for silence. "The Galactic Council has rules. Any species that achieves faster-than-light travel must be offered membership. However, we also have the right to set conditions for new members." He paused and looked directly at Jake. "Earth will be granted probationary observer status only. You may attend council meetings, but you cannot vote on any decisions. You will receive basic living quarters and limited access to our databases. After one full galactic year, we will review your species' progress." Jake felt disappointed but tried not to show it. This was better than being rejected completely, but it was also clear that the aliens saw humans as second-class members. We accept these conditions and thank the Council for this opportunity. You will be assigned quarters in Section 7 Beta, Zextar continued. This area has been unused for some time but should meet your basic needs. Council meetings occur every 10 local days. Attendance is required for all members, even probationary. Once Kristek Vorhan led them out of the chambers and through more corridors. The aliens they passed continued to stare and whisper among themselves. Some pointed at the humans like they were looking at animals in a zoo. Lisa clenched her fists, but kept walking. Section 7. Beta turned out to be in the oldest part of the station. The corridors were narrower and the lights were dimmer. Their assigned quarters were small and basic compared to what they had seen in other areas. The furniture was clearly designed for different alien body types and looked uncomfortable. For humans. This is where your species will live, Kristek said with what sounded like satisfaction. Meals will be delivered twice per day. The food will be adjusted for your biology but may not taste pleasant. Communication with your home planet is limited to once per week. After the Vorthak left, the three humans sat in their new home and looked at each other. The excitement of joining a galactic community was starting to fade as the reality of their situation became clear. They really do see us as primitives, Lisa said, shaking her head. Did you hear how they talked about our weapons and ships? Ben was already studying the simple computer terminal in their quarters. At least we have access to some information. I can learn about their technologies and maybe find ways to improve our own. Jake walked to the small window and looked out at the busy space lanes around the station. Ships continued to come and go, carrying out the business of a galaxy-wide civilization. We need to be patient, he said. We are the new ones here. If we want their respect, we will have to earn it. Over the next few days, the humans tried to settle into their new routine. They attended council meetings where they sat quietly and listened to discussions about trade routes, resource allocation, and diplomatic disputes. The other species rarely acknowledged their presence except to make occasional jokes about human ignorance. Jake began to understand the complex politics of the galaxy. The Vorthak Empire controlled most of the military forces. The Mindari Collective provided advanced technology and scientific research. The hegemony managed trade and economics. Each species had found their place in the galactic order over thousands of years. But Jake also noticed something else. The aliens seemed to do everything the same way they had always done it. Their solutions to problems followed ancient patterns and traditional methods. They were powerful and advanced, but they were also set in their ways. Maybe, Jake thought as he watched another council meeting, that would be where humans could make a difference. Earth's people were good at finding new ways to solve old problems. They just needed a chance to prove it. 3 weeks had passed since the humans arrived at Nexus Prime. Jake Sullivan was getting used to the strange routine of council meetings, where he sat quietly and listened to alien discussions. Most of the time, the topics were about trade agreements or border disputes between different species. The humans were never asked for their opinions, and Jake was starting to wonder if they would spend their entire probationary year just watching from the sidelines. Dr. Ben Carter had been spending most of his time studying the alien databases that were available to them. The information was limited, but he was learning fascinating things about how different species had evolved on their home planets. Some aliens breathed methane instead of oxygen. Others got their energy directly from radiation instead of eating food. The diversity of life in the galaxy was amazing, but Ben noticed that most aliens seemed to think their way of doing things was the only correct way. Lisa Martinez had been trying to understand the military situation in the galaxy. From what she could see, most alien species relied on overwhelming force and advanced technology to win battles. Their strategies were based on having bigger ships and more powerful weapons than their enemies. It was effective, but Lisa thought it was also predictable. Human military history was full of examples where smaller, weaker forces had defeated larger armies by using unexpected tactics. On this particular day, the council chamber was more crowded than usual. Representatives from all 12 alien species were present, and many of them looked worried. Chairman Zextar called the meeting to order with his usual commanding voice. "We face a crisis that threatens one of our member species," Zextar announced. The Sindari homeworld is experiencing ecological collapse. A virus has infected their primary food source, and their population faces starvation within months. A tall, plant-like alien stood up from the Sindari section. Its green skin was turning brown at the edges, and its voice sounded weak through the translation system. The infection has spread to 90% of our food crops. Our scientists cannot identify the virus or find a way to stop it. We request immediate assistance from the Council's best researchers. Jake leaned forward in his seat. This was the first time he had heard about a real emergency that threatened an entire species. He looked at Ben, who was already taking notes on his portable computer. Kristek Vorhan spoke first. The Vorthak Empire offers our advanced sterilization technology. We can eliminate all organic matter on the infected continents and start fresh, with clean soil. The Sindari representative shook violently. That would destroy not just the infected crops but all life in those areas. The ecological damage would take centuries to repair. A floating brain from the Mindari collective pulsed, with different colors as it communicated. Our psychic research suggests this virus may have developed intelligence. We could attempt to negotiate with it directly. Several other aliens made sounds of disagreement. The idea of talking to a virus seemed ridiculous even to species that had seen many strange things in the galaxy. Dr. Helicon from the hegemony projected a holographic display showing complex molecular structures. Our analysis indicates the virus is artificial, possibly created as a biological weapon. We recommend deploying our most advanced medical nanobots to hunt down and destroy every trace of the infection. The discussion continued for hours, as different species offered their solutions. All of them involved using advanced technology to either destroy the virus completely or replace the entire infected ecosystem. Jake noticed that none of the aliens seemed to consider any approach that did not rely on overwhelming technological superiority. During a break in the discussions, Ben stood up and cleared his throat. The chamber gradually became quiet as all eyes turned toward the human section. Jake felt nervous because they had been specifically told not to speak unless spoken to. Chairman Zextar, Ben said politely, I request permission to examine the data about this virus. Earth's biological sciences might offer a different perspective on the problem. The chamber erupted in sounds that the translation system turned into laughter. Kristek Vorhan's crystal body flashed with bright colors. The primitive humans think they can solve a problem that has stumped the galaxy's greatest minds. Dr. Helicon's mechanical voice was filled with condescension. Your species has barely left its home planet. What could you possibly know about advanced viral infections that we do not? But the Sindari representative raised one of its branch-like arms. If there is any chance of saving our world without destroying it, we must try everything. I request that the human be allowed to examine our data. Chairman Zextar considered this for a long moment. Very well. Dr. Carter will be given access to the Sindari biological databases. However, this is purely for educational purposes. We do not expect any meaningful contribution from such a young species. Ben spent the next 2 days studying everything the Sindari had learned about the virus. The infection was indeed mysterious. It attacked only the plants that the Sindari used for food, but it left all other vegetation completely alone. The virus was also remarkably resilient, surviving every attempt to destroy it with heat, cold, radiation, or chemical treatment. Jake and Lisa watched Ben work through the nights, surrounded by holographic displays showing molecular structures and biological processes. Ben muttered to himself as he compared the alien data with Earth's knowledge of viruses and plant diseases. On the third day, Ben rushed into the council chambers during an emergency session. The Sindari representative looked even worse than before, with more brown spots covering its green skin. I think I understand the problem, Ben announced, interrupting a heated discussion about military intervention options. This virus is not trying to destroy the Sindari food supply. It is trying to protect it. The chamber fell silent. Chairman Zextar leaned forward with interest. Explain this theory, human. Ben activated his portable projector and showed a simplified diagram. The virus only attacks plants when they reach a certain stage of maturity. It also releases specific chemicals that improve soil quality. On Earth, We have seen similar organisms that act as natural population controllers for plant species. Christek. Vorhan made a dismissive sound. That is impossible. Our analysis shows the virus is clearly destructive. Yes, it is destructive, Ben agreed. But destruction can also be protection. Think about forest fires on Earth. They seem destructive, but they actually help forests stay healthy by clearing out old growth and making room for new plants. Dr. Helicon projected new data. Even if your theory is correct, it does not solve the problem. The Sindari still face starvation. Ben smiled for the first time in days. Actually, it does solve the problem. Instead of trying to destroy the virus, we should work with it. I propose introducing a modified version of an Earth bacterium that can coexist with the virus. This bacterium would help the Sindari plants mature faster and become more nutritious before the virus activates. The alien scientists spent hours analyzing Ben's proposal. They ran computer simulations and tested the idea against their vast databases of biological knowledge. Finally, Dr. Helicon announced the results. The human's proposal is scientifically sound. The modified bacterium would not interfere with the virus's natural cycle, but it would allow the Sindari to harvest more food before the protective mechanism activates. The Sindari representative was trembling with excitement. How quickly can this treatment be implemented? We can have the first batch of modified bacteria ready for testing within 1 day, Ben replied. If the tests are successful, we can treat your entire planet within a week. The treatment worked exactly as Ben had predicted. Within days, Sindari food crops were growing faster and producing more nutrition than they had in decades. The virus continued its natural cycle, but now there was enough food to sustain the entire Sindari population. During the next council meeting, the Sindari representative stood tall and healthy, its green skin bright and vibrant again. The human Dr. Carter has saved our entire species. His approach was unlike anything we had considered, but it was exactly what we needed. Chairman Zextar looked at the human section with new interest. Dr. Carter, your species' approach to this problem was unconventional. Most galactic science focuses on using superior technology to overcome obstacles. You chose to work with natural processes instead of against them. Ben stood up proudly. On Earth, we have learned that sometimes the best solution is not to fight nature but to understand it and find ways to work together. Christek Vorhan was less enthusiastic. This was an unusual situation. It proves nothing about human capabilities in general. Anyone can get lucky once. But Jake noticed that several other alien representatives were looking at the humans with curiosity instead of dismissal. The Mindari brain pulsed with thoughtful colors. And even Dr. Helicon seemed interested in learning more about Earth's biological sciences. After the meeting, the Sindari representative approached Ben privately. My species owes you a debt that can never be repaid. You saw our problem in a way that no one else could. Perhaps there is wisdom in having different perspectives represented in the council. That night, Jake, Lisa, and Ben sat in their modest quarters and talked about what had happened. For the first time since arriving at Nexus Prime, 2 months after the Sindari crisis, life at Nexus Prime had settled into a new routine for the humans. Jake Sullivan noticed that some aliens now nodded politely when they passed in the corridors, though most still ignored them completely. Dr. Ben Carter had been invited to join several scientific discussions, even if his suggestions were not always taken seriously. Lisa Martinez continued studying alien military tactics, finding them impressive but predictable. The calm was broken when Chairman Zextar called an emergency council session. All representatives hurried to the chamber, including several military commanders that Jake had never seen before. The atmosphere was tense and many aliens were speaking in urgent whispers. The galaxy faces a new threat, Zextar announced once everyone was seated. A coalition of pirates led by Corvin the Destroyer has begun systematic attacks on trade routes throughout our territory. In the past month, they have destroyed over 50 cargo ships and stolen resources worth billions of credits. A holographic display showed the affected areas. Red dots marked pirate attacks, and Jake was surprised to see how widespread they were. The pirates seemed to be hitting targets across multiple sectors simultaneously. General Thexmore, a massive reptilian creature from the Draconic Alliance, stood up with armor clanking. My fleet has engaged these pirates 3 times. They refuse to fight honorably. They attack and retreat before we can bring our superior firepower to bear. They hide in asteroid fields and use civilian ships as shields. Admiral Colthanis from the Hegemony Navy projected tactical displays. Our computer models predict their movements, but they never follow logical patterns. When we position our fleets to intercept them, they attack completely different targets. It is as if they deliberately choose the most irrational strategies possible. Kristek Vorhan's crystal body flashed with angry colors. The Vorthak Empire suggests a massive show of force. Deploy our entire combined fleet to the affected sectors. When the pirates see our overwhelming power, they will surrender or flee. Several other military leaders voiced agreement. The galactic approach to warfare was based on having superior technology and larger numbers. Most conflicts ended quickly when one side demonstrated clear technological advantage. But Jake could see the problem. The pirates were not fighting a traditional war. They were using hit-and-run tactics that made large fleet formations ineffective. He looked at Lisa, who was studying the tactical displays with intense concentration. The discussion continued for hours as different species offered their solutions. All of them involved deploying more ships, better sensors, or more powerful weapons. The aliens seemed unable to imagine any approach other than overwhelming technological superiority. During a brief recess, Lisa stood up and addressed Chairman Zextar. I request permission to speak about this military situation. The chamber became quiet, but not in a respectful way. Several aliens made sounds of amusement. General Thexmore's voice rumbled with condescension. The human military representative wishes to advise us. Your species has never fought a space war. Your largest ships are smaller than our escort vessels. Lisa remained calm despite the mockery. That is true, General, but human military history includes many examples of smaller forces defeating larger ones through unconventional tactics. Perhaps Earth's experience with asymmetric warfare could be useful here. Admiral Colthanis projected data about human military technology. Your weapons are primitive projectile systems. Your ships have no energy shields. What could you possibly teach species that have fought wars across the galaxy for millennia? Sometimes primitive methods work better than advanced ones, Lisa replied. On Earth, we learned that the best way to fight an enemy who will not stand and fight is to make them think they are hunting you while you are actually hunting them. Chairman Zextar seemed intrigued despite himself. Explain this concept more clearly. Lisa activated her own portable projector and showed simple diagrams. Instead of trying to predict where the pirates will attack next, we make them attack where we want them to. We create targets that look valuable but are actually traps. We use their own tactics against them. General Thexmore made a dismissive sound. Deception and trickery are not honorable ways to conduct warfare. Honor does not protect civilian ships from pirate attacks, Lisa said firmly. Sometimes you have to fight dirty to protect innocent people. The debate continued, but Jake noticed that some aliens were listening to Lisa with genuine interest. The Mindari representative was pulsing with thoughtful colors, and even Admiral Colthanis seemed to be considering her words. Finally, Chairman Zextar made a decision. The Council's conventional approaches have failed to stop these pirates. We will authorize a small experimental mission using human tactics. Captain Roy Henderson of the Earth Fleet will be given command of a mixed squadron to test these unconventional methods. Jake felt surprised. He had not known that any Earth military ships were in the area. It turned out that Captain Henderson had arrived just days earlier with a small escort fleet that was supposed to provide security for the human delegation. Captain Henderson was a tall, quiet man with graying hair and calm eyes. When he met with the Council military commanders, he listened carefully to their briefings and asked detailed questions about pirate behavior patterns. The key is to think like pirates instead of like military officers, Henderson explained to the assembled commanders. Pirates are not trying to conquer territory or destroy enemies. They want to steal valuable cargo with minimal risk to themselves. That means they are actually quite predictable, just not in the way that traditional military thinking expects. Henderson's plan was unlike anything the galactic military had tried before. Instead of chasing the pirates with large fleets, he would use small groups of ships disguised as civilian cargo vessels. When pirates attacked these fake targets, they would find themselves facing coordinated ambushes instead of helpless merchants. "This is madness," General Thexmore declared. "You are asking our warriors to hide and pretend to be merchants. It goes against every principle of honorable combat." "Sometimes dishonor is the most honorable thing you can do," Henderson replied calmly. "If acting like merchants saves real merchant lives, then that is what we should do." The first test of Henderson's tactics came 2 weeks later in the Meridian asteroid field. Intelligence reports suggested that Corvin's main fleet was planning a major attack on a convoy carrying medical supplies to a colony world. Henderson positioned his mixed squadron of human hegemony and draconic ships throughout the asteroid field. The ships were disguised as mining vessels and cargo haulers. When the pirates arrived expecting easy targets, they found themselves surrounded by hidden warships that opened fire from multiple directions. The battle was over in minutes. The pirates, confused by the unexpected resistance and unable to coordinate their retreat in the dense asteroid field, were either destroyed or captured. For the first time in months, a pirate attack had been completely stopped. Word of the victory spread quickly through the galactic communication networks. The Council called an emergency session to discuss the results. Captain Henderson presented his after-action report to the assembled representatives. "The pirates were defeated because they expected us to fight like a traditional military force," Henderson explained. "When we acted like the targets they were hunting, they fell into our trap. Their own aggression became their weakness." Admiral Colthanis studied the battle recordings. The human ships coordinated their attacks with remarkable precision, despite using primitive communication systems. How did they achieve such synchronization? Lisa smiled as she answered, "Human military training emphasizes flexible thinking and individual initiative. Each ship captain was given general objectives but allowed to adapt their tactics as the situation changed. They did not need constant orders from above." General Thexmore was less impressed. "This victory was achieved through deception and trickery. It proves nothing about human military capabilities in honest combat." But Chairman Zextar was looking at the tactical displays with obvious interest. "General, the results speak for themselves. For the first time in months, we achieved a decisive victory against these pirates. The methods may be unconventional, but they are undeniably effective." Over the following weeks, Henderson's tactics were used in several more operations against pirate groups. Each time, the human approach of using deception and flexible strategies proved more effective than conventional military doctrine. The pirates, who had grown confident in their ability to outmaneuver traditional galactic fleets, found themselves constantly falling into carefully planned traps. The final confrontation came when intelligence located Corvin's main base hidden in a nebula where sensors could not penetrate effectively. The galactic military wanted to surround the area with massive fleets and force a decisive battle. Henderson proposed a different approach. "Let us make Corvin think he is winning," the captain suggested. "We will attack his base with a small force that appears to be defeated. When he comes out to finish us off, our real fleet will be waiting." The plan worked perfectly. Corvin's forces emerged from the nebula expecting to destroy a crippled human fleet, only to find themselves facing the combined might of the Council's military forces. 4 months had passed since the pirate war ended, and the human delegation had settled into a routine that felt almost normal. Jake Sullivan found himself participating in actual discussions during council meetings instead of just observing. Dr. Ben Carter was working with alien scientists on several research projects. Lisa Martinez had been asked to help train council military forces in unconventional tactics. The humans were finally beginning to feel like they belonged at Nexus Prime. That sense of progress was shattered when emergency alarms began blaring throughout the station. Jake had never heard such urgent warning signals before. The lights in their quarters shifted to red, and announcement systems activated in multiple alien languages. "All council representatives report to emergency session immediately," the translation system announced. "Priority 1 galactic threat detected. All civilian traffic is suspended." Jake, Ben, and Lisa hurried through corridors filled with panicking aliens. Even species that normally moved slowly were rushing toward the council chambers. The atmosphere was more tense than anything they had experienced, including the pirate crisis. Chairman Zextar was already addressing the assembly when the humans arrived. His usual calm demeanor was replaced by obvious stress. The ancient Dark Star array has become active in the void sector. All ships that approach within 50 light-years are being destroyed instantly. The chamber erupted in frightened sounds from multiple species. Jake had heard brief mentions of the Dark Star array in historical databases, but he had thought it was just a legend. Apparently, it was very real and very dangerous. Dr. Helicon from the hegemony activated holographic displays showing the affected area. The array consists of 12 massive stations positioned around an ancient star system. These stations were built by the architect race over 1 million years ago, before they mysteriously vanished. The technology involved is far beyond our current understanding. Admiral Colthanis added tactical information. In the past 6 hours, we have lost 14 ships to the array's defensive systems. The weapons appear to be some form of quantum disruption that simply erases matter from existence. Our most heavily shielded vessels offer no protection. Kristek Vorhan's crystal body was flashing with rapid color changes that indicated extreme agitation. The Vorthak archives contain warnings about this array from our ancestors. It was designed to protect against threats that no longer exist. The activation suggests it perceives some kind of danger. General Thexmore stood with his armor systems activated for battle. My fleet is prepared to launch a full assault on these stations. If we coordinate attacks from multiple directions, we might be able to overwhelm their defenses. Absolutely not, Dr. Helicon responded immediately. Our analysis indicates that aggressive actions make the array more hostile. 3 of our lost ships were destroyed only after they powered up their weapons systems. The debate continued as different species offered their solutions. The scientific approach suggested careful study and analysis. The military wanted to attack before the array could spread its influence to other systems. The diplomatic representatives proposed trying to communicate with whatever intelligence controlled the stations. Jake noticed that all the proposed solutions followed the same pattern that had failed in previous crises. The aliens were trying to use their established methods instead of considering that this situation might require a completely different approach. Amy Brooks, Earth's technology specialist, had arrived with Captain Henderson's fleet and was now part of the human delegation. She had been studying the limited data about the array since the crisis began. Amy was young but brilliant, specializing in understanding alien technology systems. Chairman Zextar, Amy said during a brief pause. In the arguments, I request permission to examine the array data more closely. Earth's experience with ancient technology might provide a different perspective. The chamber became quiet, but this time the silence felt different than it had months earlier. Some aliens were actually listening instead of just waiting to mock. Human ignorance. Dr. Helicon projected the complete sensor readings from destroyed ships. The data is limited because no ship has survived long enough to conduct detailed scans. What patterns do you observe, human? Amy studied the holographic displays for several minutes while the council waited. The array is not responding to the presence of ships, she finally announced. It is responding to their behavior patterns. Look at the destruction timing. Ships that moved in straight lines lasted longer than ships that maneuvered evasively. Carl Watson, Earth's chief engineer, joined Amy at the display controls. She is correct. The array seems to be evaluating ship movements against some kind of behavioral template. Ships that act like military vessels are destroyed immediately. Ships that act like merchants or explorers last longer before being targeted. Admiral Colthanis studied the new analysis. If your theory is correct, what type of behavior would the array consider non-threatening? Amy and Carl exchanged glances. They had been working together to understand alien technology since arriving at Nexus Prime, and they had developed an effective partnership. Carl was practical and methodical while Amy was intuitive and creative. We need to think like the architects who built this system, Amy explained. 1 million years ago, they were worried about some kind of threat. The array was designed to protect, against that specific danger. If we can figure out what they were afraid of, we can avoid triggering their defenses. Carl activated his portable computer and began running calculations. Based on the destruction patterns, I think the array is programmed to defend against aggressive, highly maneuverable craft that approach in attack formations. That suggests the original threat was a military invasion force. Ben Carter joined the discussion, bringing his biological expertise. If the architects vanished mysteriously, maybe they were not destroyed by the threat they feared. Maybe they were wrong about what kind of danger they faced. The alien scientists began debating these theories, but their approaches remained focused on overwhelming the array's defenses through superior technology. General Thexmore insisted that a large enough fleet could break through. Dr. Helicon wanted to use advanced scanning technology to map the array's capabilities completely. Amy listened to the arguments for a while before speaking again. What if we are thinking about this completely wrong? What if the array is not broken or malfunctioning? What if it is working exactly as designed, but the situation it was designed for no longer exists? Kristek Vorhan made a dismissive sound. The array is clearly malfunctioning if it attacks peaceful vessels. The logical solution is to shut it down or destroy it. But what if peaceful vessels look like threats to a system designed 1,000,000 years ago? Carl asked. The architects had different technology, different ship designs, different movement patterns. What we consider normal behavior might seem aggressive to their security system. Chairman Zextar leaned forward with interest. Elaborate on this theory. How would you test it? Amy and Carl worked together to outline their proposal. Instead of trying to overwhelm or outsmart the array, they would attempt to communicate with it using the technological language it would understand. They would approach in a single unarmed ship, following movement patterns that matched what the architects might have considered normal. This is madness, General Thexmore declared. You are proposing to fly directly into the most dangerous weapon system in the galaxy with no protection. Actually, we would have the best protection possible, Amy replied. We would be speaking the array's language. If our theory is correct, acting like architects instead of like modern aliens should make us invisible to the defense systems. The debate that followed was intense. Most council members thought the human plan was suicidal, but the Sindari representative reminded everyone that human unconventional thinking had saved their species. The Mindari collective noted that human approaches had proven effective in situations where traditional methods failed. Finally, Chairman Zextar made the decision. The human team will be authorized to attempt their approach. However, this mission will be entirely voluntary, and the Council cannot guarantee any rescue if the plan fails. Amy and Carl spent 3 days preparing for their mission. They studied every piece of available data about architect technology and culture. They programmed their ship's computers to mimic ancient navigation patterns and communication protocols. The journey to the Dark Star Array took 2 days. As they approached the outer detection perimeter, Amy felt her heart racing despite her confidence in their theory. If they were wrong about the array's programming, they would be dead in seconds. Beginning architect approach pattern, Carl announced as they entered the danger zone. Their ship moved slowly and followed a complex spiral path that ancient records suggested was used for peaceful contact between architect vessels. The array's massive stations became visible as they drew closer. The structures were unlike anything in modern galactic architecture, built with flowing curves and crystalline components that seemed to bend space around them. Energy readings showed the stations were fully active and aware of their presence. No, targeting locks detected, Amy reported with relief. The array is scanning us, but it does not seem to consider us a threat. 6 months after the Dark Star incident, Jake Sullivan stood in quarters that were very different from the cramped space the humans had first been assigned. The Council had moved them to a proper diplomatic section with comfortable furniture, large windows, and access to the best facilities on Nexus Prime. The change in their living situation reflected a much larger change in how the galaxy saw humanity. The formal vote on Earth's full membership status was scheduled for today. Jake felt nervous despite all the progress they had made. He knew that some alien species still viewed humans as too unpredictable and dangerous to trust with full council privileges. The vote would determine whether Earth would become an equal partner in galactic civilization or remain a second-class observer. Dr. Ben Carter was reviewing his presentation on human scientific contributions. The research projects he had worked on with alien scientists had led to breakthrough discoveries that were already being implemented across multiple worlds. His biological insights had helped solve ecological problems on 7 different planets, and his unconventional approaches were now being taught in galactic universities. Lisa Martinez was preparing her military report. Human tactical innovations had been adopted by council forces throughout the galaxy. The flexible thinking and adaptive strategies that had defeated the pirates were now standard training for all galactic military academies. Lisa had been promoted to admiral and was serving as a strategic advisor to the entire council defense. Network Amy Brooks and Carl Watson had become celebrities in the scientific community. Their success with the Dark Star Array had opened up an entirely new field of archaeological technology studies. Teams of researchers were using human-developed techniques to communicate with other ancient systems throughout the galaxy. The knowledge being recovered was advancing galactic science at an unprecedented rate. The council chambers were packed with representatives from all 12 member species, plus observers from dozens of minor civilizations that wanted to witness this historic vote. Jake had never seen so many different life forms gathered in one place. The diversity was beautiful, but also intimidating. Chairman Zextar called the session to order with more ceremony than usual. Today we decide whether to grant full membership status to the species known as humans from the planet Earth. This decision will affect the future of galactic civilization for generations to come. The formal presentations began with Dr. Helicon reviewing Earth's technological contributions. Human scientists have introduced 17 major innovations in the past 6 months. Their approach to problem solving has proven effective in situations where traditional methods failed. The economic value of their contributions already exceeds the cost of their membership by a factor of 12. Admiral Colthanis presented the military assessment. Human tactical doctrines have improved council defense effectiveness by 37%. Their training programs have been implemented fleet-wide with excellent results. Earth's military personnel have demonstrated both competence and reliability in joint operations. The positive assessments continued as different departments reported on human contributions to trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange. Jake felt proud, but also anxious. He knew that the real debate would come when individual species representatives gave their opinions. Kristek Vorhan was the first to speak for his people, the Vorthak crystal being stood and flashed with measured colors. The Vorthak Empire has observed human behavior carefully over these past months. We admit that our initial assessment was incorrect. Humans possess capabilities that complement our own strengths in valuable ways. Jake felt surprised. He had expected Kristek to be one of the strongest opponents of human membership. The Vorthak had always been the most vocal critics of human methods. However, Kristek continued, we remain concerned about human unpredictability. Their tendency to ignore established procedures could create problems in the future. We support probationary membership extension, but question whether full status is appropriate at this time. The Mindari Collective representative pulsed with complex color patterns as it communicated telepathically. The translation system converted the thoughts into spoken words. Human mental patterns are indeed chaotic compared to our ordered thinking. But this chaos has proven to be a strength rather than a weakness. The Mindari support full membership. Galactic civilization benefits from diversity of thought. General Thexmore spoke for the Draconic Alliance. Human warriors have earned our respect through courage and innovation. They fight with honor even when using unconventional methods. The Alliance votes for full membership. The Sindari representative stood with vibrant green skin that showed perfect health. The humans saved our entire species when no one else could. Our debt to them can never be repaid. We enthusiastically support their full membership. One by one, the other species gave their positions. The scientific civilizations praised human research contributions. The trading empires valued human economic innovations. Even the most traditional military species acknowledge the effectiveness of human tactical thinking. But not everyone was convinced. The ethereal conclave, beings of pure energy who rarely involved themselves in physical matters, expressed concerns about human emotional instability. The ancient watchers, an old species that had been council members for thousands of years, worried that humans were advancing too quickly and might disrupt established galactic order. The debate continued for hours. Jake listened carefully to each argument, taking notes on the concerns that were raised. Some aliens questioned whether humans could be trusted with access to the most advanced galactic technologies. Others worried that human unpredictability might lead to accidents or conflicts. Chairman Zextar called for a brief recess before the final vote. During the break, several alien representatives approached the human delegation privately. The Hegemony's trade minister, a mechanical being with multiple arms, spoke to Jake directly. Ambassador Sullivan, my government wants you to know that we consider humans to be valuable partners regardless of today's vote. The innovations your species has contributed to our economic systems have been remarkable. A floating Mindari brain pulsed with friendly colors as it communicated. Human cognitive patterns have taught us much about the value of nonlinear thinking. We hope the Council recognizes this contribution. Even some traditionally conservative species expressed support. A crystalline being from the Eternal Archive approached Dr. Ben Carter. Your biological research has opened new fields of study that our people never considered. Knowledge grows stronger when different perspectives are combined. When the session resumed, Chairman Zextar announced the voting procedure. Each member species will cast one vote. A 2/3 majority is required for full membership approval. The vote will be conducted by sealed ballot to ensure complete honesty. The voting process took only minutes, but it felt like hours to Jake. Each species representative inserted their decision into a quantum encrypted ballot system that would prevent any possibility of fraud or coercion. Chairman Zextar received the results and studied them carefully before speaking. The vote on human full membership status is as follows. 9 species vote in favor of full membership. 3 species vote for extended probationary status. 0 species vote for rejection. The chamber erupted in sounds of celebration from multiple species. Jake felt relief flood through him as he realized what this meant. Earth had not just been accepted, they had received overwhelming support from the galactic community. By the authority invested in me by the Galactic Council Charter, Chairman Zextar announced formally, I hereby grant the species known as humans from the planet Earth full membership status in the Galactic Council, with all rights and responsibilities therein. The ceremony that followed was unlike anything Jake had ever experienced. Representatives from all 12 species presented Earth with gifts symbolizing different aspects of galactic civilization. The Vorthak offered military technology sharing agreements. The Mindari provided access to their most advanced research databases. The Sindari presented seeds from their homeworld as a symbol of growth and cooperation. After the public ceremony ended, Chairman Zextar approached Jake privately. Ambassador Sullivan, I must admit that I had serious doubts about your species when you first arrived. Your methods seemed chaotic and your thinking undisciplined, but you have taught us something valuable about the nature of intelligence itself. What is that, Chairman? Jake asked. That advancement is not just about having better technology or more powerful weapons, Zextar replied. Sometimes the most important advancement is learning to see familiar problems in completely new ways. Your species excels at this kind of thinking. Kristek Vorhan also approached the human delegation. The proud Vorthak seemed uncomfortable, but determined to speak. I owe you an apology, Ambassador Sullivan. My people believed that our way was the only correct way to approach challenges. You have shown us that there are many paths to wisdom. We all learned from each other, Jake replied diplomatically. That is what makes the council strong. Later, that evening, Jake stood with his team in their new quarters and looked out at the stars. Human ships were now docking at Nexus Prime as equals, carrying diplomats,